The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. This is Ron. And sorry about the short notice. We were going to do this on Thursday, but I was told by one of our customers that tomorrow's a Jewish holiday. And since we have a lot of Jewish customers, I wanted to accommodate them. So anyway, we moved it up a day, but I think it'll work out for everybody. If you can't, for those who can't attend, of course, it's going to be recorded as usual. Now, in your handout window, I hope you can see it. There are 4 files there. And the files are September webinar 2017 PDF. That is just really my personal list of things I'm going to cover today, and I'll probably cover some other things too, but it's just a sheet to help me stay on track. But I think you may benefit from it also if you want to go back and go over this video and see the steps that I'm taking. Thanks, Paul, for letting me know you can hear me. I forgot to ask that. The other PDF files up there are the PDFs from the help file in HGSI, and George put them up there for you to download if you want to have your own copy. Rather than referring to the help file, you'll also have the PDF. So I hope you can all see them. I don't know what your screen looks like, but tell me if you can see those PDF files in the window. Just somebody. Okay, thanks, Darren. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Now today's webinar, as you probably gathered by now, is about VPA, or volume price analysis. Some refer to it as volume spread analysis. It's essentially the same thing. The volume spread analysis may be a little more descriptive because it talks about the spread of the individual candles, but ours is called volume price analysis, and that's what Anna Culling does also, and a lot of what we do is similar to what Anna does. So anyway, that's where we are, and I'm going to hopefully show you some of the power of HGSI. Now, let me explain something. I know all of you are not members of the Insider Club. Now, I am not I am affiliated with the software, but I work independently. So that's why I have an Insider Club. And what I do with the Insider Club is I create files, views, filters, combos, and charts. And I'm always working on new charts, filters, views, and so on, trying to get the most out of HGSI. And the people that belong to the Insider Club have access to my latest files. And occasionally, and I haven't done anything for a while because I've dealt with some health issues, but I was doing webinars on a regular basis. And I see Paul Reike just posted something to Facebook there. I'm going to close my browser so those don't pop up. Anyway, so everything in the Insider Club is things that I work on, and after later in the year, I hope to start doing webinars again. As most of you know, and I don't want to dwell on this, I've got multiple myeloma, but I'm going in for a stem cell transplant, and that'll be in October, early October. And fortunately, I've felt healthy throughout most of this process. I've got a lot of energy, but I hope to have more energy. So anyway, that's coming up soon. So consequently, I don't think there's going to be a live webinar in October. I don't think I'll be recovered enough, but I may be towards the end of the month. So we'll just see what happens, okay? Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, on that sheet that says VPA Prospecting with HGSI Investor Software, that is what I'm going by. The first number one says the help file contains a good explanation of the VPA chart indicators. You can look in the help file, you can locate it here, or you can you can locate it from all the modules. Now I already typed VPA in here, but all you have to do is type in VPA and whoops, I put VAP in there. All right, let me do that again. And then it will take you to the high HGSI volume price analysis indicator, and there is a lot of information in here, and that is what you're going to find on those PDF files. But you can find it both places. But the beauty of HGSI is you can learn VPA without really referring to a lot of the information in the help file. If you want to go into it more in depth, the information is there waiting for you to look at. Now today in the market, it was a Fed meeting day, Fed announcement day, so consequently the market was all over the place. But do you really think that the powers that be in the market want to break that winning streak in the Dow Jones Industrial Average? It certainly doesn't look like it, and I really, this is just my opinion, and it's absolutely worth nothing, but I really don't think this market's going to break until after there is some resolution on what's going to happen with taxes, with corporate taxes and so on. So that's just what I think. I certainly don't base your investment opinions or your investment strategies upon what I have to think. Base them on what you see with volume price analysis, and that's what we're going to get into. I'm going to shut down my other computer so it doesn't drag any of my bandwidth, and we're going to get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going into my designer, and you can see that I shut the other computer down, and I'm going to go into what I call my non-index groups. That is kind of a esoteric term, but it just means that none of these indexes down here are going to be calculated when you do your update. That's why I call them non-indexed. After I update them every day, I right mouse click here, and this is something you may or may not have to know. I select group subfolder index options and select no index for group, click on OK, and it takes the indexes out of all of these groups so it doesn't take time during the update process. Now if you have an SSD drive or a solid state drive, it's not that big a deal, but still it can be a little irritating if you have lots and lots of data like I do in here. Okay, so let's get down to that top 50 group inclusion report for today. These are the 50 stocks that appeared after yesterday. So I'm going to click through to the warehouse, and I'm going to go to, these are my files. The last dated file is 2017 0810. That's when it went out. And then I add to the same file, and then at some point I'll reorganize everything and then I'll put other dates on here. But I am in my top-down process view right now, and I'm looking at what's called the scorecard end of day. Now the scorecard is one of the views that goes back a long way. I've modified it here for my own use, and this is what it looked like last night or early this morning going into the close. Now it says, if you are following along with that PDF, it says open the group inclusion report, which I just did, and then open the spectrum analyzer. This is a spectrum analyzer up here. Now this has a lot of uses, and you're going to see how I use it. It just happens to be open now to the intraday range of the stocks. But I'm going to drop down here, and I'm going to go up, not down, to the industry, and I'll select industry, and this shows me the breakdown of the industry. Now most of you who have been with us for a long time know that it does this. Now, I realized talking to a customer the other day that most people may not be aware of this. This is the pin window on top, and I always have that selected. Now, you don't have to close this after you use it. You just minimize it. Before I minimize it, though, you can see that yesterday there was a lot of strength in the semiconductor manufacturing and semiconductor devices because they dominate the top 50 group inclusion report here. Now, I'm going to sort by days since, and I already have done that, it looks like. Days since the last VPA signal, and I want the most recent signals to be on the top. Now, I'm going to do a secondary sort, and I believe I've already done this too as I prepared for this today. But you can, when you sort on a column, it goes to the top of this sort list. And don't think this is complicated because it's not. So just I just want to show you some of the power and some of the different looks you can get on this. My second sort was by industries. So what does that do for me? It tells me the days since the last VPA signal, the most recent signals are on top. That is 0. That's a crossover day, which was yesterday. And then 1 means 2 days ago, 2 means 3 days ago, and so on down the list. And now you can see that the industries are sorted. They're not sorted as all together, but they're sorted according to the days since the last VPA signal. So I can see that there were 2 casino and gaming signals, yes, or VPA signals or flags yesterday that occurred together, and it tells me what they were right here. Now, I didn't want to do that. I screwed it up already, so let me go back here. But you can see how this is going to sort over here. So I'm going to reopen this, and I'm going to select my secondary sort. The easiest way is you can just type something in if you can't find it. And I'm going to sort by industry, and then you can see that this column resorted, and I'm back in order over here. So let's see what these signals were. There was an effort to rise, which is a very bullish signal. Now, in these views, I have added the signal description also, so we have the condition and the signal description both. So yesterday was for Melco Resorts and Entertainment, MLCO, we had an effort to rise and a high volume up bar on the next one. So both of these are strong signals in the casino and gaming. So with both of these making the top 50 group inclusion report, and if you're new at HGSI, you may not know what the group inclusion report is. And if you don't, maybe towards the end of this, I can explain that a little bit. But for those who use the program, it's pretty well known how to do that. But let me know towards the end of the presentation if you don't know how to do it, and I'll quickly show you. So let's just take a look at casinos and gaming. And I'm just going to click on the first one. Now, like I said, the market was all over the place today. And this is a chart. By the way, I put a few charts, couple of new charts in here with the automatic trend lines, or some, not trend lines, support and resistance lines are essentially what they are. And these are drawn automatically, and it's based upon the current data. But they're very helpful to see where support was in the past, support and resistance was in the past, and you can change the sensitivity of these. These are based upon what is called the zigzag indicator, but it's just a nice visual, quick visual to see where support and resistance was. So I'm just going to leave this on here or use this chart for now, and you can see that here, I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to hit my alternate 1 key. Here is that flag from yesterday, and it was an effort to rise. You can see that the volume volume was heavy yesterday, and here is the flag, and look at this, it gapped open and profit taking set in today. But if you look down here, you can see a lot of other VPA flags, and these are all bullish here. This is a low volume test. This is a confirmation of that test. Here's an effort to rise, another test. And what do I mean by a test? It means that here's the signal. You go down and you look at the volume and you look to see where the candle closed for that day. If you're using a candle or a bar or whatever, it closed in the upper part of its range. Volume was light. So this means that that selling was met with buying pressure. So it's a low volume test. Now these are all, when these are under the candles, it means that there is not much selling pressure. So there's no supply. If we look at these green dots and you look down here at the volume, you can see that the volume is falling as this is going down. Here's another low volume bar. So that means there is very little selling pressure, and then what happened? This stock took off. Now, some of you may not know about the group line, which is the dotted line. It may be hard for you to see. I do not like to make it too prominent in my charts because I can see it, and I just want it there so I can see if these stocks are following what the group is doing, and you can see that this group was moving up. Now with the a very volatile day in the market, I'm not just surprised to see this this stock pull back like that. I mean, it's just when it gaps up like this, and if you've been in this stock somewhere down here and you get an opportunity to take some fat profits, or traders do, they're just going to take it. It doesn't mean they're going to leave it. They can get back in, and you can see that there was some buying pressure at the end of the day. Now, rather than look at the end of day version of this, what I'm going to do is I have put a scorecard intraday just below number 4 and number 5. And the reason I do this, or did this, is I want to see how these stocks performed today. So if we look at the intraday view, you can see that a lot of these did not hold up today, and that really is not surprising with the weakness in, especially in the NASDAQ today. The NASDAQ was not strong at all. Now you may be saying, well, geez, those signals were not that good. Well, this is one day, and you certainly can't base anything on one day, but you have to look down here and see how long ago many of these signals were too. These are the ones that were current, but what I'm looking for here is, what I'll do here is I'll just go ahead and sort on the industry. And then as I mentioned earlier, the semiconductor devices and semiconductor manufacturing were very strong yesterday, or they would not be in this list. But I can look here, I can sort on the industry, and I can look over here intraday, and I can tell that these groups, or this group, is not following through. Only one of the semiconductor devices was positive for the day. It looks like there are about, well, here's a quick way to find out. There were 10 of them, and there are 11 manufacturers as of yesterday. And this is why this is what I mentioned earlier. You could, if you have this pinned and you minimize this, all you have to do is, see, it leaves my screen. But as I go from screen to screen, I want that to pop up, and I want to see what industries are being represented. So I don't know how many of you knew about that or know about it, but it's very handy. So let's see if any of these groups held up today where there are multiple stocks. It looks like the biotech, there were 2 with a positive day. And by the way, the Russell 2000 was strong all day. These biotechs may be in the Russell 2000, but you can see that the semiconductor devices and the manufacturers did not have a good follow-through day to day. And those are generally NASDAQ stocks, and the NASDAQ was all over the place. There was a big shakeout in it. A lot of people do not trade Fed announcement days because it's a day where you can really get beat up in the market, especially if you're a futures trader. And these groups just did not hold up. Now, that was number 3 that I went through. And let's just take a look at some of these, though. Let's go back. I'm just going to do this randomly. Let's look at something in the past. Let me resort on this here. Well, that was a weak signal many days ago. Let's look at, I do not know this stock, but let's just look at it. So 14 days ago, there was an up bar closing near the high, which confirmed return of strength, and this is a semiconductor. I don't believe I'm familiar with this stock, but anyway, let's take a look at this, and I'll get this out of the way. That up bar closing near the high, and by the way, certain criteria need to be met when stocks are generating VPA flags and signals. Now, Matt, I'm going to say this, and if I'm wrong, you come on and correct it. I think to generate a flag or a signal, we need 100,000 volume. And you can see that this on a 90-day and on a 50-day, this one only trades 259,534. So there was a low volume test for supply, but that is not showing up as the last flag. It's the up bar closing near the high, and that would be clear back here. And as I click on this, notice that the description is right here, an up bar closing near its high. It confirms return of strength, and that was 14 days ago. So this was showing strength clear back here. It's confirming this flag, and you can see the groups going up at the same time. And this one did not register because I believe it did not trade enough volume. Let's see if I can figure this out.
You know, Ron, I think that one's it's one of those low volume test ones which we don't flag a VPA signal on.
Okay, Matt.
Well, that's true. I have added it to the next release if and when it ever ships.
It'll be out. But
yeah.
See, it did not trade 100,000 that day either.
Yeah, and that may have also caused it to not signal that day. But I think with the low volume test text there, and the fact it's a pink under the thing, I think it wouldn't have qualified even if it had crossed 100,000. Because there's a volume requirement, but we also only process some of those signals.
Okay, yeah, there are some signals which there are some that flag, and then there are some signals, and the signals are actually stronger. But the way I'm setting this up on some of these screens, we can pick up just about everything. So let's not worry about that. But anyway, there was a low volume test that I was talking about here. And you can see, look how low the volume was on that day, and look where this closed relative to its intraday range. Here's the low of the range, here's the high, so consequently it didn't generate. But I think, I don't know, it could have been, it didn't have enough volume that day or not. Yes, Bill, if I get a chance, we'll talk about the zigzag indicator and so on. But let's put that off for now. I want to get through some of this other stuff. Okay, so these were good VPA flags here. Not every VPA flag or signal is going to work, obviously, but if a stock is in a group that is moving, and that's where this group line really comes into play, the odds are much more favorable for you or much more in your favor if there are VPA flags and the group is moving up. Now this stock, this one's worth considering in the future. Look at the earnings growth on this. The revenue growth has been really good, and the earnings growth is good. And this is not a really expensive stock. By the way, this chart up here, for those who may not know, this is a turnaround stock. When the earnings and revenue were going down and then they turned around, that's when a stock like this often will go up. Now let's look at a longer term chart of this. By the way, I moved from a close up to this view by hitting my alternate 2 key, and alternate 1 will take you back to a close up, so you can go back and forth very quickly. Now this has been consolidating for a long time. You can see these support and resistance lines were drawn in, and it broke past this resistance area here. And this all depends upon the sensitivity of these lines. Well, Bill, let's take a look at it right now since I'm talking about it. And Matt, you can help me on this if I forgot. We haven't really covered these for a long time. So the way I have this set up, I have a number of lines 3, so that will actually make 6 lines. There's 6 altogether. And Matt, tell me why there are 6. I really can't remember. But the sensitivity in the zigzag indicator is 2%. So when there's a 2% change, these lines will be drawn. But you can experiment with that. And it's just something that I've been using for quite a while, and it seems to do a good job. And what I like about it is it just gives me a good visual of where support and resistance were. Now, there were no other lines drawn in here because we haven't had a 2% change in the zigzag. So I'm going to leave it at that for now, and maybe down the road we can discuss that some more. Okay, now number 4, if you're reading along my list, if you're prospecting in a bull market, and we've been in a bull market really since 2009 without any major corrections, you want to concentrate on stocks that are in an uptrend. So what we have in HGSI is the fan. This is something Matt put in for me. Well, I'll bring up a chart and show you rather than just talking about it. But going to my featured bullish prospecting scans, here's a bullish EMA fan. Now, I'm going to go to all securities rather than just working with this group inclusion report. So to get to all securities quickly, if you hold down your alternate key and hit your space bar, it will go to all securities, and you can see that it has come up here, and it's just finishing, and then I'm going to go reapply the filter, and you can see that there are 1,330 stocks that meet this requirement, and I'll show you the requirement now. But first I'm going to make a group. You can use your alternate G key, or you can just say make group from list. Now I am concentrating on stocks that meet the fan requirements, and as soon as I make the group, I'll show you what those requirements are. So this is going to change from all securities up here, and it's going to go or change to fan up. And because I'm using a lot of horsepower on this, it isn't doing it as quickly as it usually does. So you have to be patient. Either that or I have to get a new computer, and I don't want to spend the money right now. Okay, there it is. There's fan up. Now, notice that this is all green up here today. This is in intraday information. And the reason everything is green up here is because on this view, I have the combo ranking. And if some of you are watching who don't know what a combo ranking is, it is the ability to use any field that we have in the warehouse and so on in HGSI and put it into a combo. And I weighted these 33% apiece, the intraday range, the intraday percentage change one day, and the intraday percent volume divided by the 20-day moving average volume. And these are all weighted at 33%, and this does a good job of bringing the stocks during the day that are moving up to the top of the list. And you don't have to do, is Anindo on? I don't know who's on. If he's on, I was going to explain to him that I never do intraday updates. I really don't see any reason to. And the reason I say that is because if you do an intraday update, yes, it updates all the smart groups and everything else, but those signals, the VPA flags and so on, are really not valid until the close, because you don't know what the daily range of the stock is going to be. You don't know the percentage price change or the volume. So there's no need to spend the time doing intraday updates when you can come into a view like this, which is most of my views just have the intraday right in here. You can sort on the raw combo, and it's going to bring the stocks, the best stocks. Thank you, Paul. These, I shouldn't say the best stocks, but it's going to bring good candidates to the top of the list that are moving that day based upon the intraday price change, the range, and the 20-day moving average. So let's just look at Plug Power. It's a $2.74 stock. Probably not a great example. Let's find something that's a little. This one I'm not familiar with. JP Jupai Holding Limited. One-day change 14.78%. The intraday range 90.81%, and the volume compared to the 20-day moving average volume is 295.5% or 300% of normal. The last VPA flag was 3 days ago, and that was transfer of ownership. So let's bring this chart up, and then I'm going to change to the chart with the fan and the group line. And this is what the fan filter does. It requires that the 18-day exponential moving average be on top of the 50 exponential moving average, and it has to be above the 100, and it has, or all have to be above the 200. So the fan actually formed here. If I put my, let's see, it wouldn't have been until here, but look at this stock, it was going down. It takes a while for these fans to form. But when you get an LLUR stock, and I'll talk about that here in a minute, or lower left, upper right, those stocks have been in motion for a long time. This one totally changed its personality, and this had to be on news. But this is a stock today, like I said, it was up what, 15% today approximately, and an effort to rise. And look at this tremendous volume. When you're looking at the intraday data, the VPA flags and signals will form intraday, but like I said, until the end of the day, they are really not valid or confirmed. But this now is a stock that is showing an effort to rise. Big move, it must be news related. I'm going to take a quick drink, excuse me. So you can go find out what it was. One way to do it is to get more info from the web. And let me see if I can do this quickly. I'll bring this into my window. There are several sites where you can go and you can see if there's any news on this. I don't know if it was earnings or what. This isn't giving me much information. Let's try a different site. Let's go to Google Finance, see if we can see anything here. Why is JP Morgan coming up? I have no idea. Let's try Bloomberg. I'm not going to do any more than this. I'm going to stop it with this one. It's a third-party wealth management. I don't see any news on it. There must be something out there floating around, though. But anyway, the point is you can go do quick research by doing more info from the web. But with volume price analysis, the volume and price are telling us something, and the spread of the candle. There is extreme buying pressure in here. Now, I don't have Thinkorswim open on this. I don't know how this played out during the day. But if you start looking at these views 15 minutes after the market opens, and you'll see some stocks that are moving up. And in 15 minutes, it depends on the open, but you can catch some of these stocks that are starting to move and maybe get in on them. Now, I doubt if this stock made that entire 15% move. Paul, would you take a look? You have your Thinkorswim open. Would you tell me how this played out, if it shot straight up, or if it kind of stair-stepped up during the day? But the point is, no news on Twitter either, Paul says, so I don't know what the news was. Maybe it's inside information. But looking at this, when you are looking at any of these views which have the intraday data in here, you can go over here to the right and see when the last signal was. And I didn't look at this when I was on the chart, so I'll bring it back up. But it says 3 days ago, transfer of ownership. That just means, and here it is right here, I'll zoom in on this, it just means that volume was heavier than normal and it closed above the 50% portion of the candle. But the transfer of ownership was there was buying power here, but it didn't close at the high of the day, so there was some short-term profit taking. And you can see that, well, let me put the crosshair on, that volume on that day was heavier than it was normally. So there was a little profit taking that day, but if you look at it the next day, you know, it held up very well. Okay, Paul says that jumped about 50% move at the open, then the balance during the rest of the day. So, and with a 15% move, there still was plenty in this. So it jumped about this much at the open, and then the rest of it built throughout the day. So you can still catch some of these as they're moving higher. Okay, let me check my list out here. Okay, now let's go through some of these new ones that I put in for the Insider Club over the past week or so. Now this is one, well, this one's been in there 2 or 3 weeks, but this is something I thought of, I don't know, probably 3 weeks ago. For those of you who may not know, LLUR means lower left to upper right. And it shows a stock that, let me zoom out on this, has been moving from the lower left to the upper right. And that's, remember, we also have the fan requirement on. So here's the fan, and it's been moving up. Now, I thought, why not combine this with some VPA flags to look for possible trades? Now this just happens to be a stock, and Paul mentioned it today, that I said about a month ago, this looks like a stock you should just hold on to. You just buy it and hold on to it. And this is a very frustrating stock to hold. The reason why is it just didn't do anything. For the longest time, I'm going to draw a couple of lines on here. It just consolidated in here, and it finally broke out yesterday on an effort to rise. And then today it was moving up very nicely, and here we have another one of those transfer of ownerships. You see this right over here, because what happens is, what happens in an instance like this, people that are buying it are not that confident that it's going to continue to move up. So there's some short-term profit taking. And Paul, are you saying it was strong until the Fed notes came out? Okay, thank you. But there was some profit taking here. You can see this. But also I want to point out, in addition to, well, first of all, let's go back to this one right here. This is a no supply, which is a sign of strength. When you see a green, I'm going to go move in on this, a green dot, no supply, a sign of strength. Look at the very narrow range of this VPA flag, or I'm sorry, the candle, the range of the candle, and put the crosshair back on and go down here and look at the volume. It means that there is no supply because there is not much selling going on. So that is why this VPA flag was generated. And yeah, here's a, these could be classified as spinning tops if you're into candle jargon, and then it started moving up. But notice that it hugged this 18-day exponential moving average line for a good month. And what I really want to point out here, in addition to this no supply, look at the big volume bar here, and then look at the last 2 days. This means that there is suddenly tremendous demand. Paula, do you have intraday turned on? They shouldn't be empty. I'll go back and take a look at that before this is over, just to show you, to make sure. But look at the tremendous buying that is coming in here. This means there is a lot of interest. There was a lot of interest back here too, but you know, it moved up and then it stalled as volume fell off. But that is an LLUR. Let's go to another LLUR. Now, the reason I want these intraday columns to show up every day is because this is a screen with last night's data. And I want to come in here and I want to see which of these stocks are following through during the day. And they don't necessarily have to be green. I like to also look at this intraday range column as the day goes along. And if the intraday range is towards the high of the day, even if this is red over here, even if they're negative, that means that there may be some buying in there. So let's just take a look at this stock here. And this is a bank. I'm going to go back here to some of these VPA flags. Now, I am putting screens in here so we can just isolate on things like this. I may not have everything in yet. I added 3 today, and I put it out there for the Insider Club. So if you're a member, go do the add-on, and you will have these views that I'm going to be talking about in a minute. But here is a great signal here, and there are several of them. Strength seen returning after a downtrend. High volume up bar closing on the high indicates strength, effort to rise. So multiple, there were 3 signals here. Now this volume bar, look how much higher it is than the prior volume bars going clear back here. So this is what helps generate these flags. And this, notice that this is in a fan. The fan was intact when this happened. I'll zoom out on this so we can see it better. The fan has been intact for a long time on this particular stock. And it certainly was intact here. And then look what happened here. Big volume, relative volume. This kind of overshadows it here, but there was big relative volume here as this took off. So what is VPA? Volume price analysis. It's figuring the spread, it's figuring the volume, and that is where supply and demand comes from. Now, when you get a big move like this, it's not uncommon to see some early profit taking, but this stock just kept on going. And notice the bank group here. It was pretty choppy, but it's moving right along with it. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to make this full screen, and you can see where the fan, well, the 200-day didn't come into play until right here. So looking up here, you can see this is a relatively new stock because it isn't filled out with all the earnings and the revenue. So the VPA, it would have started showing up in the fan group right at this point, and that's when it was a $15 stock, and now it's a $23 stock. And you can see that there were many bullish flags along the way and a few bearish ones also. But with HGSI, unlike any other programs out there, there are VPA programs out there, but I tell you what, I've owned a lot of them, and most of them are really clumsy to use. This one gives us the flags and the signals when you do the update. Trade Guider is the end of day, in my opinion, is a disaster. It has not been updated for years. And by the way, I bought it was either an upgrade or I resubscribed or something, and I was supposed to get an updated version of the program, and that was 4 years ago, and I still haven't seen it. So anyway, I never use it anymore. It's worthless. You don't need it. It's worthless to me, I should say. Some people probably find it worthwhile, but I don't need it because I've got everything I need in HGSI. Kind of sounds like a sales plug. Well, it is, because this is a very powerful program. Now I'm going to go down the list here. I've already talked for almost 50 minutes, which is hard to believe, but I'm going to go back. Well, actually, let's see what comes up here with the fan up. So VPA bullish test for supply. Notice this column right here. There's a 0. I'm limiting it to today. There's a 0 here, which means it occurred yesterday. When I do an update tonight, the 0 will be for the data from today, but this is yesterday's data. But what's good about this, and this is another reason you don't need to do an intraday update. You get these signals, and then you apply this, and you see which of the stocks are following through. So here was a test for supply, and here's A.O. Smith Corporation. It was up 1 point, or a little over 1% today. Let's just sort these on the biggest gainers. Here's one that was up 11.34% today. And here was your low volume test for supply yesterday. I'm going to move in on this once again, and let me bring this up here. Notice that the volume was lower than the volume in the past, and look where it closed. It closed in the upper part of its daily range. And that is represented right here. The 72 point, this is today's, I'm sorry, I forget what I just said. Yesterday it closed, it probably closed at 0.85 yesterday of its daily range. I'm just guessing. But today it opened and it generated 2 VPA flags today, an up bar closing near the high after a test. Here's your test. Here's closing near its high, confirmed strength. This is a little $3 stock. Watch it tomorrow. See if it follows through. it's got some, it's right, well, it's right at resistance here in the short term, but it's a fan stock. Let's look up here. It's got revenue, it's got earnings, and the earnings, you know, 2 cents, but we look at the percentage change here. It's in the industrials group, the aerospace and defense, or the industrial sector, aerospace and defense, and it is a tight chart right now. Look at this volume today. Now we need to take a longer term look at this stock. Let's go to a weekly chart. Alternate W is a weekly chart. And then I'm going to go to take a long-term look at this. I mean, we're more concerned with what's happening now. I don't think these people back in 15 are still holding on this stock, trying to get out of it. But this stock has really never done anything in retrospect here. But you can see, look at the last 8 quarters up here. You can see that the last 2 quarters, they've had a really good jump in revenue based upon the percentages and the earnings also. So maybe this time it will actually do something. I'm just suggesting that you put it in your watch list and see what happens tomorrow. And I hope it goes up, and I hope you make a lot of money. Okay, I've got a question here from Jim. Let me go talk about the intraday here in a minute, Jim. You and Paula have a question about that. It'll update automatically for you if you don't do manual. Let me, well, let's talk about it right now, since I'm on the subject. Okay, intraday. Do you have intraday enabled? If you have intraday enabled, that's the first thing you have to do. Then these are your intraday options. You can update intraday every 5 minutes, and it's 15-minute delayed. So the columns are after the market's open for 15 minutes. These columns are going, well, no, they'll fill in anyway. They'll fill in pre-market with yesterday's or the prior day's data. Now you can do a manual update if you want to, and all you have to do is hit the F5 key, or you can do an automatic update. I'm going to leave it on manual right now. I meant to do that just so it doesn't slow me down. But just make sure that you have intraday enabled. And then if you do, these columns are going to fill. Even on the weekends, they'll fill with the data from Friday. So Paula, are you and Jim saying that you are not getting any of these intraday columns to fill? If you are not, you don't have intraday turned on, enabled. That's all there is to it. The other options are, well, you can select update intraday now, or you can change your intraday time. You don't have to do it every 5 minutes. If you want to do a manual update during the day, just hit F5 or come here and select update intraday now. No, you do not need to do intraday updates. I don't see any reason to do it, because the smart groups are not going to be valid until the end of the day. Does that answer your question? Okay, let's move through the rest of these quickly. So there is a test for supply. This is a very good view and filter. And this one is no supply. Remember the green dots I was showing you? Those are the no supply dots. And you can see once again, days since the last VPA signal is 0. This is no supply down this column. And by sorting, I'm sorted on intraday price change right here. Let's just bring this up. You can see the green dot. So I'm going to go to alternate 1. There is a no supply. We have a stock once again that is in a fan formation down here. Here was a pullback. The fan formation started again when it went through there, and that had just happened to be on an effort to rise. We had some a couple of negative VPA flags. This one was overpowered because the group was going up. When the group dipped down for a couple of days, this stock dipped down a little bit too, but it really held its ground. And this is today's data today. And you can see that it generated an effort to rise. And I want to back out of this one a little bit. This is a nice looking chart. This was quite a little pullback here because it pulled all the way back to the 100-day exponential moving average, but it held. And then when the flag regenerated, it started moving again. Once again, the group is important. Here, it went down with the group. The group held up though, and then it found its footing at the 100-day exponential moving average. And then we start seeing a bunch of white candles after, once again, a low volume test for supply. Now I'm going to run through these quickly in the fan up, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to look at them in all securities. This confirms return of strength. This was actually down today. Let's bring it up and look at it though. Remember I'm in the fan up. It's not going to bring very many up here, but multiple VPA flags on real page here. Here was strength seen returning after a low volume test for supply. Looked like it was going to go up, and it actually did gap open higher than yesterday's close, but it got overwhelmed by the market today. I can't tell what the group is doing. The only advantage of doing a full intraday update is you can see what the group is doing with this group line, but I have other ways of looking at that too, to see what the group is doing. So anyway, so it pulled back, but where your eye should really go is down here to the volume. It pulled back on much lighter volume than on these days when it was going up. So it is worth adding to a watch list to see if the market's strong tomorrow. And it closed well off of its lows. Yeah, this may be a candidate. So when I see a stock like this, I'll just put it in a watch list. Okay. So let's get rid of that. Now let me move on to the next one. Now VPA bullish up bar closing near high. This is from yesterday's data. You can see that in the fan folder, you can see that 4 of them were down for the day and 2 were up. Let's take a look at YRC Worldwide, which is a trucking company. And once again, low volume test for supply. That is definitely a screen that you should be looking at. And what do we have here? The next day, an up bar closing near the high after a test confirms strength. And what happened today, even though the market was all over the place, it went up again. Now, let's take a longer term look at this. It's been pretty tight in here. It got loose in here, but if the group continues to go up, this stock has a good chance of going higher. But you can see the value of these VPA flags. I mean, here are a couple that worked out really well, and then effort to rise on both of these, got up here, profit taking, it stalled out, then it fell back. Again, we didn't have any down VPA flags, but that's because the volume probably wasn't heavy enough, but now we're getting positive VPA. Now let's go down and look at this one. Already looked at that. That's real page. Let's look at this one. It was only down 1.97% for intraday, but it closed at 17.343% of its daily range, and the volume was heavier. So that means if the volume's heavier, there was some true selling here, and look what happened today. It generated a negative VPA flag. So the consumer discretionary commercial services, I wouldn't put this in a bullish watch list, but just because there was some strong selling pressure here, the volume point of control, which I'm not going to cover today, it also turned negative. But this has been in a long term consolidation, and it just really hasn't been able to get out of its way. Another thing, if you look closely here, you can see that the 18-day exponential moving average is right on the 50, and it may actually even be under it. So it is losing its fan formation. Another thing is the group is going up and this stock is not. So I'd be okay, a couple of questions. Yeah, Andrew, this is all, it's not true Wyckoff, but Wyckoff's whole thing was built on supply and demand. And the thing that I have against, well, I shouldn't say I have against, but is a lot of people, a lot of things have been added to Wyckoff since he died. You know, there are a lot of people teaching Wyckoff out there, and Wyckoff never would have heard of a lot of these things. If you go back and read his original writings and the original course, you're not going to find most of that stuff. So this is Wyckoff because it's based upon supply and demand, support, resistance, things like that. So yeah, I still use it, but I don't use it like people that really have all these other criteria use it. No, I'm sure they would disagree with me, but you know, I don't think we need to get into it like that with this program, because what do we concentrate on? We concentrate on price and volume, and where the spread is, or the where the close is relative to the open. We look at the group. We look at the overall market and so on. Really, that's what we need. We don't need all this other esoteric stuff. So yeah, I'm using Wyckoff. I'm Anna Calling. Have you read Anna Calling's book? She mentions Wyckoff all the time, and you know, she doesn't get into all that other stuff that a lot of these people are teaching. Sure, Steve, you don't know how to put a stock into a watch list? I'm ashamed of you. Just kidding. Okay. Let's go back up to this stock here. I'm not crazy about this just because it's kind of loose, but I'll show you how I do it. Okay, Paula, so you're all set now on the intraday. And Jim, I hope you are too. If you're not, send me an email, and you know, we'll do more of these sessions. And that's why at some point I probably need to doing webinars again, so we can put all this stuff together. Okay, so let's say I'm interested. Well, actually, let's go back. Let's go back to this test for supply, and this is the one I told you that you should put in a watch list, even though it's over its lifetime, it's really done nothing. But look at all these VPA flags here, and the group's moving up, and it had an earnings turnaround. No, the industry groups do not update intraday, but I can show you how to do that, Bill. Okay, what I do is I right mouse click and I quick add to group. This is my watch list from today, but let's say we're going to make a watch list for tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to click on choose. And I'm going down to my user groups. I'm going down to my watch list. I'm going down to September. I'm going to click on new. And I'm going to date it 2017-09. What's the date today? 20th. So I just put the date in there. I click on OK. And it's going to, now it takes a little while for the first one, but my computer's bogged down. It's not going to take you this long. But after you create the group, I'll show you how quick it is. I might have to spend the money for a new computer. Okay, there it is right there. Click on OK. It's there. Now let's go find another stock. You heard that click. Let's find another stock that closed near the top of its range. A.O. Smith. Let's go look at this one. Okay, now look at these great VPA flags here. I mean, this was a good call here too because it pulled back. Look at the group, and then here's a low volume test for supply. Here's a confirmation of that test along with an effort to rise, another one. Here is a no supply, low volume test. Here's a confirmation of that test today. So I want to add this one. Now I have two choices. I can go to my keyboard and I can hit my alternate G key, or I can right mouse click and select quick add to group, and it was that quick this time. So my computer was bogged down. It took me a little while to make the group. So after you make the group, it's very, very fast. Okay. Now, I'm going to go about 10 minutes more, and then we're going to have to quit. So these are the new ones that were added. Of course, I never cover everything that I want to, but you can do, if you have that sheet, you can go down through the list and do these things yourself. But let's go to all securities, get out of fan up. So I'm going to hit my alternate space bar. And once again, I'm a little bogged down, but that's all right. Okay, so let's sort on the raw combo. And these, now if I go to test for supply, and you have this open during the day with this combo in place, these are the stocks from yesterday showing a test for supply. And look here, you can see that these zeros are in here. You can just come in here and you can look for stocks that are following through. There are 80 stocks in this list, and if I sort on this, 53 of them were up today. I had to take a quick drink. So it looks like one of them or several of them were down, you know, some, but not all low volume tests work. But you can certainly apply this to all securities, have your intraday information coming up here, and you can go in, that's that same stock, and you can see if there are some potential trades here. Here's your low volume test, and this is another cheap stock, inexpensive stock, another one. I should probably raise the prices on them. Now here is a stock that at one time, well, actually this one's held up pretty well. I'm on a weekly chart right now. Let's look at this one's actually held up better than I thought it had. U.S. Concrete, USCR. Let's go back to the daily. And you can see that I'm close in here, as you can see. You can see there was a run up, and then there were several good VPA, negative VPA flags here. The group is going down. What do we have here? We have a low volume test for supply, and we have what is called stopping volume. Stopping volume indicates that there is a high volume bar and it closes at the top of its range. So both of these flags were generated on the same day, and they were good because it's held. Here's another low volume test, and here is a confirmation of that test along with an effort to rise. Steve, I'm going to add this to my watch list. So quick add to group, it's in there. Yeah, I'll leave them in, Marilyn. In fact, I noticed a couple of filters where I had some higher price stocks, and I'll lower those to $1 and so on. You want me to look at AMD, Paul? Is that what you're saying? What is the news? Buyout? I better not go look at the news, but here's AMD. Now let's talk VPA here. Now I've got a good video card in here, Steve. This computer is about 6 years old. I got a lot of RAM and everything. It's just, it works fine for me most of the time. What is the news, Paul? Can you tell me quickly? Anyway, here's AMD. Look at these. Here is a no supply. Here is a confirmation of that. Strength seen returning. Here is an up bar closing near the high. Tesla's buying their chip deal. Wow, that's good. Are you in AMD? Did you buy it today? He says yes, he's in it. But look back here. Look at all the support across here. Follow the mouse across here. Yesterday, he bought it yesterday because of this VPA, these multiple VPA flags. So there's Paul's using the program as it should be used. Well, good for you. You've had a pretty hot streak lately, haven't you? He owes me big time, though. And I haven't seen any check in the mail either. Just kidding, Paul. Anyway, let me get back to this. I got diverted. So these can be followed during the day by using delayed data, all of these views. One thing I want to point out before I leave. Now, this is an older view. But this works extremely well. Go down to number 23, intraday stocks and ETFs off the intraday low. If you click on this, these are stocks that have pulled back from a 1 or 2 day swing high. Long-term trend is up, so the fan is in place. Oh, you're going to send me some hot dogs, huh? Anyway, these are stocks that have pulled back from a high. Here was the high, and what you're looking for using the method that I generally recommend, but we can do so many things with HGSI, don't get me wrong. I look for a little pullback, and then I like to see a break past that high. So this is a perfect example of a stock. It would have occurred here too and here, but on the intraday, I use a 1 or 2 day pullback. It could be either one. And when that was taken out, there's your buy point. Let's look at a few more of these. This one was slightly lower than the 2 day high right there. So here's your buy point right here. These stocks, these views are good views. Here's your pullback. Here's your you could buy it here, or you could have bought it above the high on this one right here. So that's number one. This one, these are pulling back from the swing high. This is just long-term trend up. In other words, these are in the fan formation. Now let me use the raw combo. I was sorted on percentage price change. There's plug power again. Here's a oil stock up 5.4%, closed at 100% of its daily range. Just look at these intraday. This is another reason you don't have to do intraday updates. I put all this stuff in here for you so you can just come in and look at these screens. Why take the time to run through an intraday update when you can see these stocks, and these are stocks that are coming off of their lows. Now I'm just sorted on the raw combo here. Intraday upward momentum. And you can see it's green. Well, there's 645 stocks in here, and I'm going to go at the bottom, and you can see that it's still mostly green even at the bottom. But the ones you really want to pay attention to are those that are near the top. So these are two good intraday scans. Now, I want to show one more thing, and then it's time to go. I always talk too long in these sessions. You want to know how to, Bill, you ask about industry groups intraday. So I'm going to use the W&B user groups. Just go into the number 7, the industry groups, And under Tools, Rebuild Indexes and Group, make sure you close your warehouse first or it'll slow it down. And what this is doing, it's taking the delayed data, 15 minutes data that's 15 minutes old, and it is rebuilding the indexes. So I can look intraday at what's happening in these groups. Let's just let this finish. It really doesn't take very long. And then I'm going to show you how you can get the most out of this. Okay, so we're going to go back
Ron,
in. Yeah.
One quick comment. If you don't have the intraday updating on 5 minutes before you do the index build, I recommend you go in and do the update intraday now on the main toolbar, so it updates all the stocks prices.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Before you do the index build. Now, if you've got it updating every 5 minutes, then you don't need to necessarily do that because it will have updated every 5 minutes. But if you're on a whole manual, instead of F5 won't, unless you're in all securities, F5 won't do it. You have to use the main toolbar.
Okay, so what Matt's saying is if, I'm sure you know what he's saying, but if you're on manual, you have to use update intraday now before you do what I just did. Otherwise, but I'm always on update every 5 minutes, so I just run it. All right. So now this is from today. This is intraday data from today, which is really the market close, and you can use the combo, which is demand end of day, and it tells me that exploration and production stocks were strong today. Or you can look at what I usually do is look at the advancers versus decliners. And you can see that today, well, let me get to the top. I wasn't at the top. The industrial distribution and rental index had 19 advancers and no decliners. And commercial finance, 16 to nothing. So these groups are the ones really where the strength was today. And then, of course, what did I do here? Oh, okay. Darn it. Okay, so then you can change to the index group, and then you can quickly look at the scorecard intraday. You can just flip back and forth between these two, and you can see what these stocks are doing. Now notice that I saw one of those stocks. I looked at YRC earlier, which was coming up in one of the scans, but if you want to see what the groups are doing, this is the way to do it. Then you just go back. So let's go to, I'm going to finish on this unless somebody has some questions. Let's go to rail freight index. Change to industry groups, then just click on scorecard intraday. You can see that the index is on top, but these are all the stocks that were up today. So that's really how you get an insight into what's happening intraday in the groups, and that's a very powerful feature. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Or did I answer everything? All right. Well, if you don't have any questions, that's fine with me. But thank you, Steve. I'm going to be fine. Thanks, Marilyn. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I feel great. I really do, and I've felt great for most of the time. So, thanks, Tom. And when I get back, we'll talk about putting all this together. Maybe doing a webinar or something. Paul says AMD up 10% since the close, so he's feeling pretty good about himself. And I'm happy for you, Paul. Yeah, I have all kinds of scans for multiple VPA signals in the same day. I'll show you that very quickly. If you just featured bullish scans, any of these, bullish VPA flags last 3 days, flag up if I'm in all securities. you can do anything you want to do with this program when it comes to VPA. Look at all these different signals here. Doug, all of these different signals. And it's all in the filter. I put everything in the filter when I created the filter. So if any of these conditions happen, it's going to appear in this warehouse view. But what I'm doing now is I am putting some individual flags in here for people that want to concentrate just on those. And I'm sure I'll be doing more of these as I go along. Okay, well, thank you, Marilyn. All right, I better end this. I wanted to go an hour and 15. It's an hour and 20 so far. Anything else? Okay, tell all your friends about HGSI, and let's get them started, and we'll get some webinars going to get them caught up, or some seminars or whatever. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody, and I'll be back as soon as I possibly can. Okay. Thank you. George, you want to end it?
Yeah, will do, Ron. Thanks. Good job.
Thanks. Thank you.